Abstract. It is my aim to validate a series of bold claims about consciousness. These claims will not rest on metaphor or mysticism, but will be defended through rigorous philosophical reasoning and anchored by the most reliable scientific observations available to us. We will examine each claim, testing them against counter-arguments, and explore their broader implications. The purpose of this inquiry is not intended to add one more voice to an already crowded debate, but to establish a framework that is both parsimonious and compelling, one that brings clarity where the philosophy of mind has often drifted into confusion. The claims I propose are in no particular order of importance. Only physical things exist. That which is shareable must be physical. That which exerts an effect on the physical world must itself be physical. Non-physical things do not exist. Metaphysical things do not exist. The universe is real. Pain is the default setting of existence. Thoughts are physical things. Free will does not exist. Everything in the universe is holographic energy, according to physics. Qualia are the ebb and flow of the hologram in relation to entropy and energy. This book begins from a set of established axioms, or principles, that are as stark as they are uncompromising. They assert above all else that only physical things exist. Everything that can be shared, measured, experienced, or exert a causal influence must be physical, because nothing non-physical has ever pushed an atom, moved a muscle, or shaped a single event in the universe. From this follows an unavoidable conclusion. Non-physical things, mystical forces, metaphysical essences, immaterial minds, do not exist. They are stories born of confusion, artifacts of language, placeholders for what science has not yet described. If something cannot, even in principle, affect the physical world, then it has no place in reality. The universe is real, not an illusion, not a simulation, not a projection of consciousness. It exists independently of human perception, and consciousness is the latecomer in this cosmic story. The brain is not the creator of the universe. It is a participant within it, shaped by its laws, bound by its constraints, and forever immersed in its unfolding. Within this physical universe, thoughts themselves are physical things, electrochemical events in a biological hologram, constructed entirely of energy and atoms. A thought is not separate from the world that gave rise to it. It is the final stage of a causal chain that often begins far outside the skull. When lightning flashes, when a loved one speaks, when a memory resurfaces, the resulting thoughts are not conjured by an immaterial mind, but produced by the brain as physical responses to physical inputs. From this framework arises a truth that many find unsettling. Free will does not exist. Every decision, preference, impulse, or hesitation is the product of prior physical states, genetics, neural wiring, developmental history, sensory input, hormonal cycles, and environmental pressures. What we call choice is the conscious shadow cast by processes that have already occurred. We do not choose our thoughts. We experience them. We do not choose our desires. We inherit them. The universe moves through us, and we interpret the movement as agency. Modern quantum physics deepens this picture. At the smallest scales, everything is holographic energy, a structured interplay of fields, interference patterns, and probabilities. Matter is not solid, but a choreography of informational waves, flickering in and out of existence, trillions of times per second. The brain is built from this same shimmering substrate, and its internal representations behave holographically, distributed, redundant, and deeply interwoven. From this, the nature of subjective experience, qualia, can finally be placed on physical ground. Qualia are not mysterious inner essences. They are the ebb and flow of the brain's holographic field as it struggles to maintain coherence against entropy. Pain is not a moral or metaphysical problem. It is the default setting of existence, the felt signature of disorder pushing against structure. Pleasure is the temporary easing of this tension, the stabilization of the hologram, the brief reprieve from entropy's relentless pull. Consciousness is not magical, nor separate from physics. It is what the universe looks like from within a system capable of resisting decay. The qualities of experience, the redness of red, the sharpness of pain, the fullness of joy, are the internal geometry of a physical system, maintaining its fragile order moment by moment. These axioms form the backbone of the theory explored in this book, that mind and matter are not two realms, but one continuous process, that subjective experience is a physical deformation in a holographic field, and that the story of consciousness is ultimately the story of how the universe, through life, temporarily defies entropy long enough to notice itself. I call these the established axioms, for quick reference throughout this novel. Taken together, these axioms amount to a radical simplification. They reject the temptation of dualism, dismiss the lingering allure of metaphysical entities, and deny any privileged status to what cannot be tested or observed. To some, this will sound reductive, an unpoetic stripping away of mystery. To me, it is the opposite. It is to insist that reality, in all its complexity, grandeur, and strangeness, is sufficient. It is to affirm that the truths of mind and matter, however elusive, can and must be sought within the physical universe that we already know to be real. From these axioms, I propose a central thesis. Consciousness can be distilled into a single fundamental unit: the thought. A thought is not a narrow slice of cognition, nor a mechanical spark of neural activity. It is the living essence of mind. Within it are contained emotions, intuitions, inner dialogue, memories, perceptions, sensations, and the elusive qualities philosophers call qualia. Every movement of problem solving, every imaginative leap, every moment of aesthetic or moral insight. These are thoughts, and all of them are real. If thoughts exist, and if only physical things exist, then thoughts must be physical. This is a claim at once startling and obvious. Startling, because we are accustomed to treating thoughts as vaporous, ethereal, somehow floating beyond the reach of matter. Obvious, because we know, through neuroscience, through psychology, and through common experience, that thoughts arise from brains, and brains are physical entities embedded in a physical world. If a blow to the head can alter memory, or a chemical compound can alter mood, then thought is inseparable from matter. Yet, my focus is not on thoughts in their broadest form, but on their innermost texture. Qualia. What is it to feel pain, to savor wine, to see crimson, or to remember a childhood summer evening? These are not incidental aspects of consciousness, but its essence, the very what it is like of being alive. To understand consciousness, we must define, locate, and isolate qualia in a way that withstands both philosophical skepticism and scientific scrutiny. This work, therefore, is not about indulging metaphysical speculation for its own sake. I will not rehearse the familiar tropes of quantum mysticism, nor will I rely on the indeterminacies of physics as a convenient refuge for mysteries of the mind. Concepts such as wave function collapse, superposition, or the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics will appear only when they shed legitimate light on the subject. not as rhetorical decoration. Likewise, I will acknowledge the grand theories of modern physics, general relativity and quantum field theory, but only where they provide context. The danger of invoking them carelessly is to invite pseudoscience, to cloak the unknown in jargon, and to obscure rather than illuminate. Instead, my approach is pragmatic. The goal is to examine the nature of reality and the relationship between matter and consciousness in a way that is both philosophically rigorous and accessible to empirical inquiry. The standard of proof I propose is simple. What is real must, in principle, be observable, testable, or deducible. Where the tools of science reach their limits, we will lean on reason and common sense, not as substitutes for evidence, but as guides for interpreting it. The project is neither strictly philosophical nor strictly scientific. It is an attempt to weave both together into a coherent account of consciousness. For philosophy without science is sterile, and science without philosophy is blind. The task, then, is to draw on both traditions in order to grapple with the oldest of questions. What is the mind? How does it arise from matter? And what does its existence tell us about the structure of reality? Author's preface and disclaimer. This book is, at its heart, a philosophical exploration, an inquiry into the nature of consciousness, qualia, and the so-called hard problem that continues to perplex both scientists and philosophers alike. It does not claim the authority of experimental science, nor does it offer testable hypotheses in the conventional sense. Rather, it seeks to illuminate certain logical possibilities that arise when we examine the known laws of physics alongside the undeniable fact of subjective experience. No laboratory experiments have been performed to support the ideas presented here. Instead, the discussion proceeds from established scientific theories, reasoned analysis, guided by observation, introspection, and the principles of coherence and plausibility. My aim has been to avoid the pitfalls of pseudoscience while still venturing into the conceptual frontier where physics, logic, common sense, philosophy, and consciousness inevitably converge. If there is speculation here, and surely there is, it is a speculation in the service of clarity, an attempt to follow common sense and logical inference to their furthest boundaries, where even the familiar begins to shimmer with mystery. The reader is invited not to accept these ideas uncritically, but to engage with them as thought experiments, contemplations that, like consciousness, are meant to be understood and experienced. The divergence of science and philosophy. At its root, science is a branch of philosophy. The first scientists were not lab-coated technicians armed with precision instruments, but thinkers, Greek philosophers who sought to understand the nature of existence through reasoned inquiry and direct observation. Among them, Aristotle stands as the archetype of the scientific philosopher. Living from 384 to 322 BCE, he earned the title Father of Biology for his systematic exploration of the natural world. Unlike many of his predecessors who explained nature through mythology or divine agency, Aristotle relied on empirical observation, dissecting animals, recording behaviors, and classifying living things with a rigor that would echo through millennia. His writings, particularly History of Animals, documented an astonishing range of insights into metabolism, temperature regulation, embryonic development, and the organization of life. He was, in every meaningful sense, both philosopher and scientist, long before such distinctions existed. However, for the purposes of this book, it is necessary to separate science and philosophy, not because they are inherently distinct, but because modern culture has drawn a line between them. Today, science is the domain of measurement, experimentation, and predictive power, while philosophy is regarded as the domain of reflection, reasoning, and meaning. The two, though historically entwined, have grown apart. This separation serves a practical purpose here, to prevent confusion. When I speak of science, I am referring to the systematic investigation of the physical universe, the study of measurable phenomena and the search for causal laws. When I speak of philosophy, I mean the interpretive lens through which we make sense of those findings, the reasoning that gives context and coherence to what science discovers. Yet, even as we draw this distinction, it must be remembered that they remain two halves of the same enterprise. Philosophy asks the questions that science attempts to answer, and science provides the data that philosophy must interpret. The present work walks that border, grounded in physical reasoning, but philosophical in its pursuit of meaning.